What if you could automatically tag or classify rows in Airtable without training a machine learning model? Large language models and something called zero-shot classification lets you do just that. And in this video, we'll look at how to do it in just about 5 minutes using NLUDB and HuggingFace. We'll start by using Airtable's plugin gallery and finding a demo app to use as a starting point. This one, called Update Records, is a great place to start. And so we'll download the code on GitHub right here. And here's what that looks like in Visual Studio Code. It's a simple project with a few React classes. The Airtable SDK is pretty great. It gives us this command line block run that will boot up a server on localhost that we can now connect to from the live production Airtable. So here we go, we click run, and here's our app. This demo app lets us select cells here and then click this update button, and it adds 1 to them. So we see we just made those 2 and then 3. We can select lots of cells here and it'll increment all of those. Let's take a look at what that looks like in the code. I've actually pulled out the update function here. We can demo this by changing the +1 to +100. And then if we go back to our web browser, select some rows and click update, we see that now it's adding 100 to each of them. So we can use this function as a nice clean place to place our classification. Now we actually need one more UI element. And I've already added it to the code but commented it out. So let's just find it and uncomment it here. And it just lets us pick the column that we want to use as input to the classifier. So here it is right here. We can pick a column, and then the other drop-down box lets us pick the output column of the classifier. So let's just paste in a little bit of extra debugging code to explore what these values are. And in particular, I want to show you what this reference value looks like. It's just a string. It's going to be the contents of the column that we picked as input for the classifier. So if we look down in the console, we'll see that it contains the value of the cells in the city column. All right, so let's create a column to classify into. We'll call it continent and just add North America, South America, Europe, all the continents. These are the labels for our zero-shot classifier, and they could really be anything. And if we look at what the input to our classification function is, we see that we get a list of these labels as options for it here. So that's the reference value and the output options variables coming into this function. So to convince ourselves that we can use these, let's just add code that returns a random label from that list of valid labels. So now every time we click the update record button, it will return to us a valid label from the range of labels that defines that column. So using this Airtable template project, this is a good start, but our goal here is really to add a zero-shot classifier to go from the reference value to one of these output labels. And we'll do that by using NLUDB. NLUDB makes it easy to use natural language processing in production. If you're a software developer, you can just say import NLUDB, and you get access to a number of primitives that just work, whether you're experimenting or working right in production code. So we import it here with our API key, and then we just say const NLUDB equals new NLUDB and pass it our API key. And then let's mark this function as async. And then we'll create a classifier, and we need to pass it a model. In this case, we'll use a zero-shot classifier hosted by HuggingFace. And then save equals false just tells NLUDB not to persist an API for us to use for this model later. Make this an await. And now we'll just do the classification. We'll get the results. We'll await for classifier.classify. We pass it the docs. In that case, that's the input reference value. It's a list. We'll pass it the labels. This is the possible labels we could use. And then we'll kind of cheat with their error checking here. We're just going to look into the results object, grab out the top result. It's ordered by confidence. And then we'll return the name, which is going to be one of those label names. And otherwise, if there's no results, we just return an empty string. And that's really it. Now if we go over here and click Update Records, we see that we're getting the correct results for each of these record blocks. So Paris is in Europe, Chapel Hill is in North America, Sydney is in Oceania. And this is with absolutely no training, no labeled data. We could add new cities here. London, England is in Europe. And of course, you could also use this on any domain of data. So your input could be customer service messages, and your output labels could be product, return, or account opening. Your input could be subject lines on emails, and your output could be the label in your inbox you'd like to route them to. We can try it here on some geographic features, the Rocky Mountains, Mount Fuji, classifies it correctly to Asia. Starting from Airtable's example app and adding just a few lines of code with NLUDB and HuggingFace, we can begin to do some pretty incredible things with our data. If you're a product developer and you'd like to use natural language processing in production with very little effort, go to nludb.com. We're in private beta and we'd love to talk to you.